One of the things that I think a lot of early stage remote companies struggle with is kind of the interstitial stuff and the handoffs. Is there anything that you've seen that works to make sure that kind of that interstitial and the handoff between functions is more performant?
Eric Lyman, the CEO of Ramp, he talks about this with job descriptions, but I think it plays in this context as well, which is make job descriptions extremely short and very specific. That's what you hire for. Here's your job. Here's what you're expected to perform. Here are the metrics that you are expected to march towards. And like in December, basically of this year, I effectively redid our whole go-to-market team. And I wrote down a document that I share with the entire team of here is your role, here are your responsibilities, here are your metrics. And it's 2 pages long, right? For everybody on the team. And then it's let's talk about it. Who disagrees with anything that's on here? Or did we miss anything? Or is something unclear between this role and that role? And then it's if you just rely on people to be adults and execute together. And it's if you guys can't have a conversation and get to a decision and you need to bring me in, then bring me in.
I love it. Hey, everybody. Thank you for joining. I'm Aaron, one of the co-founders of Arita.ai. I'm here with Kyle from 2 Boxes and Yaw from Malomo. We're all Team Yaw. If you guys aren't sure, if you need to force rank us, it's in the opposite order. Just excited to have a discussion. I've known both these guys for a very long time and spent a lot of time with each of their companies too, and admire them as humans, yada, yada, but also as operators and really, really sharp folks in the ecosystem. They also represent 2 different sides of the ecosystem, which is cool, right? It's commerce tech, but serving similar brands, but one obviously much more on the logistics, the operations, supply chain side, one much more on the customer service plus the growth side. So excited to have this. I'm just going to start with you guys telling us quickly, or not even quickly, but your founding story. I don't just mean Malomo, what's your background? How'd you get into this? Why commerce? Why'd you start your company? Maybe we can start with you and then we'll hand off to Kyle, but take it away.
Yeah, for sure. Great to be here. Thanks, Aaron, for setting this up. Excited to get some juicy gossip, if you will, on e-com and the Shopify ecosystem. But my story is a little bit different and weird. I studied civil engineering in school. I love the intersection of math and art, and I felt like civil engineering was kind of that unique blend of both, where you get to design bridges, buildings, structures, and then do the hard math to figure out how to actually make them. And then I, around my junior year, just caught the bug. I actually launched a marketplace for online books on our campus. And that was my first taste into entrepreneurship. And caught this software bug. And so I made the decision right then and there. I was actually going to try to pivot my career into software. Always knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur, but software specifically. So I just finished my civil engineering degree. Then I got into a 2-year fellowship program that placed graduates here in Indiana at high growth companies, predominantly software companies. I got placed at an investment bank. So I was doing corporate finance work, helping companies buy and sell other companies and divisions, and then raise kind of private equity and growth financing. So it was a lot of fun. It's eye-opening going from civil engineering, kind of into a really deep business experience. And then I left and launched my first tech company after that program ended. It was an online reading game for kids. So we were blending kind of content and commerce. It was cool. It's this digital world for kids to kind of build their digital bookshelf of the books that they were reading. And we would get the recommendations around what kids were reading. And it was all kind of backed by Amazon. The tech was all backed by, we were using a bunch of Amazon APIs. And so we'd make book recommendations to parents. And that was a business model, was kind of the affiliate. So it was awesome. We got distribution through schools, got a dozen schools on the initial platform. But just didn't show enough traction soon enough to kind of keep that business going. So ended up shutting it down. Then I met my co-founder that I'm working with now. We launched a consulting business where we were helping companies kind of build web and mobile apps. And then we got deep after a couple of years running that business into the Shopify ecosystem, started working with merchants to build custom post-purchase experiences, and that's what gave us the idea for Malomo. So that fast forwards us to kind of where we are today.
You and I met in 2019 at Unite, right?
Yes.
I think you were just going. Is that right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, we like met in a was it United? Yeah. Was it? No, it wasn't.
It was you and Eddie, I think.
Oh yeah, me and Eddie. I thought you said United.
No,
Yes.
no, 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 no.
Yeah, yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
more, I love United Airlines. Okay. But this is not about them. We don't have any sponsors at this point. Yeah, man, that's cool. All right. So we'll go a little deeper into Malomo in a minute, but I love that. And then Kyle, what's your background? How'd you get into Two Boxes?
It's a non-linear story, I guess I'd say. I started my career in finance and management consulting. And in 2013, I got recruited out of consulting to join a publicly traded mining company called US Silica that nobody's ever heard of. And I was like really going into it. I was focused on corporate strategy and mergers and acquisitions. So I spent like the first year there kind of like figuring out how to make this like very complex operational business more profitable. And like leading a couple acquisitions on top of that. And so through that, my boss at the time, he's like one of the greatest people I've ever worked for. He's awesome. And he like, we were talking about effectively the idea of US Silica getting more into logistics. And we found this company that we wanted to acquire, and kind of one thing led to another. And I just started spending a lot more time in the logistics side of the business. And I like just kind of fell in love with it. It just was like super interesting, like all these complex problems. And like, I don't know, I got really like in that experience, I fell in love with like, I'll call it boring problems that are surprisingly impactful on a business if you can solve them and like find leverage through them in the business. And so anyways, that was like my like aha moment on logistics. At the time it was like 2013, 2014, I was living in Chicago, and I started seeing like cool logistics tech companies like Project 44 and Four Kites starting, and Flexport opened a big office there. And it was sort of like, that looks really cool. I don't know how to do that. All my consulting friends are going to get MBAs. So maybe that's what you do to like go and get into tech. So yeah, then I went and got my MBA and got into startups from there. I did like a small stint in an autonomous vehicle software company that was acquired by Tesla because I just wanted to like do early stage stuff, and it was like the best opportunity I found. So I was like, I'll go try it. And I realized that I loved early stage stuff, but I wanted to get back to logistics. So I ended up actually joining Flexport in their ocean group. I was in their like biz ops team and like a chief of staff role to the head of the ocean business. Learned a lot there. And then I got recruited to move to Colorado for this company called Outrider that builds autonomous yard trucks, which is like kind of like meshed the little autonomous vehicle and like logistics background.
Sorry, no, the audience can't be like, whoa, cool. But it's super cool. All right.
Yeah. And then I swear this will lead to a point at some stage here. So I'm at Outrider, and they build these autonomous yard trucks. So like logistic environments, and a lot of the environments that I was going into were fulfillment centers. And I kept having this experience going into like high volume fulfillment centers where if you're a nerd like me, they're so cool from a like design and technology perspective and like how they move goods outbound real quick. But then every fulfillment center had like a large corner of it, like maybe 10-20% of the footprint that was a total shithole, just, putting it like bluntly. And it was always the return section. And I'm like, wait, like why? How did these companies have this big of a problem with this? Like, why is this not solved? And then, I met my co-founder Evan at Outrider, and we made a stupid decision to start a company together. And 3 years later, I guess here we are. So it's been a weird journey, but a fun one.
I love it. I'll do a super quick intro to myself. So similar-ish story, but less exciting. Consulting, didn't know what to do with that. MBA. And then I started a company for 3 months after my MBA. I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I always thought of entrepreneurship as like get a Subway franchise without cash, get another one, whatever, right? And like having gone to Berkeley, which I know Kyle, you went to, seeing tech startups was very cool. I ended up starting a consumer brand, like a watch company that was a print-on-demand watch company. It was meant to be a 3-month project. It turned into like 7 years, and so much joy, like so much joy. It's really fun, and like the stakes are low when you're sending somebody a watch and it breaks. You're just like, keep it. We'll refund you. We'll send you 6 more. Like, don't worry about it. Versus like software where you like, it's can be so impactful to serve a business, but then you're just like, oh my God, do we screw something up? We don't want to hurt the brands that like I used to be that brand owner. And then after that, kind of in like 2017, started moving much more into the tech side. So co-founded Passport that does international shipping, was at Loop Returns for a while, returns and exchanges, and then obviously co-founded Arita. And in the process, I'm very biased. I've had the opportunity to be an advisor to both of your companies, which is cool. So I've actually gotten to see that. Probably like one of the top 8 or 12 advisors for each of you. So very, very proud of that. Guys, I want to go for like a minute with you. I want to go deep with each of you just first, and then like let's have the conversation. But Kyle, maybe I'll just run it back to you. Like, tell us at a super high level what 2Boxes does and what the insight, like what the problem that you saw was. And then I've got some follow-up questions about like, what do you know now that you didn't before? But let's like tell everybody what 2Boxes is.
Yeah. So effectively, we work on, I'll call it, solving all the nasty operational problems associated with returns inside of the warehouse. Right. So most brands, most e-commerce brands that people know and love and buy from will use a company like a Loop Returns, Aaron, where you used to be at, to initiate a return and get it back to a warehouse. That warehouse is typically operated by a third-party logistics provider. And that third-party logistics provider is typically serving many brands per facility, not just one, right? And when you think about a return, every return actually needs to be received, inspected, graded. Like, is this thing the right item? Is it in a good condition, bad condition, whatever? And then that person in that warehouse has to make a decision about what to do with that item. And ultimately, that inventory decision, if you want to think about it that way, really needs to be communicated back to the brand. When you go into warehouses, when you start thinking about this problem at scale, like many brands, lots of different tech providers on the front end, like Loop and Narvar, Happy Returns, lots of different types of products that are coming back, lots of different decision trees that brands want to apply to those things, it starts to scale in complexity really, really quickly. And the people inside of the warehouse who are dealing with this are typically dealing with it in very manual and offline ways. Think like paper instruction manuals for each brand, think a spreadsheet for each brand. And so really what we do is we build software that helps integrate with all the great front-end providers in this ecosystem and drive a really awesome and intelligent experience for the end user, that warehouse worker, to make the right decisions about the products in real time and communicate everything back to the brands.
All right. So very mature. And it's like, look, if you have a return process and it's a PDF that is like printed out and handed to like a worker who only sees that brand once a week, and then the next week there's a different return process, like there's no chance that everybody can be up to speed, let alone all the data side. When I think about your business, it feels like there are kind of, and correct me if I'm wrong, but like 3 different customers or 3 different stakeholders that you're serving. There's like the brand, first and foremost. It's like everything's in service of the brand, but the brand has chosen a 3PL. Cool. So now you need to like empower the 3PL, and in particular, like the line worker, to serve the brand. And now with like Loop, Narva, or whatever, it's like the returns people. And I'm sure there are other like non-RMS, like not returns companies that you also serve. If you think about, first of all, is that like a correct way of thinking about the business? And okay. I see you nodding. I'll take that as an awesome point, Aaron. My real question is like, think about today versus years ago when you started the business. What are some of the surprising changes in terms of the customer needs or the partner needs or the 3PL needs, where it's like, oh, it seems so self-evident that they want X, but they actually want not X. And if you can like share a little bit about that journey to figure that out, that'd be cool.
I would say the biggest thing, one of the biggest changes, is that when we started the business, right, we felt, all right, there's pretty clear value prop. Like, it is the merchant's inventory that's sitting there, like literally sitting there for weeks or sometimes months on end. And a lot of it ends up, getting thrown away or being processed incorrectly, and it causes all these issues. It's like, oh, the merchant should really, really care about this, right? And I think when we first started the company, actually, surprisingly, a lot of merchants didn't care. It was 2022. A lot of things have changed since then in terms of the cost of getting inventory into the country, thanks tariffs, the complexity of supply chains is increasing. The interest rate environment is very, very different than it was in like 2021, 2022. And then just like the strain on the 3PL ecosystem is going up and up. So I think a lot of brands 2-3 years ago did not frankly care that much. And now when I talk to brands, a lot of them are like almost beside themselves of like, I got 30% of my stuff that's getting returned that sits in the corner and I don't know what to do with it. And I can't get my inventory out of Mexico or, whatever it is. So I think that's been a big change of like how quickly something that didn't matter to one of the stakeholders matters really, really quickly. And then I think the second is, I've been in the logistics industry for coming up on, like 12, 13 years now. And I think it is interesting that it's like a tale of two cities. There's like people who get it really, really quickly and they want to move fast and they want to have an advantage in a fragmented market. And then there's a lot of people who don't get it, or they've actually been incentivized to not get it based on how they price, how they structure, how they do things. And so I think that's been really tricky is like, how do we navigate getting into larger and larger 3PLs? Because it's what we ultimately want to do. That's where a lot of the volume is. But how do you kind of use the different incentives of the stakeholders in this, overall ecosystem to, get our technology adapted further, faster? Because frankly, I do believe that once we are integrated, everybody in this ecosystem tends to say like, oh, that's great that 2box is involved. But it sometimes, takes a little bit of maneuvering and judo to get there.
Yeah, I want to come to you in a second, but actually, Kyle, I want to think about like ostensibly a bunch of brands, right, who you serve or listening to this or people who you might. What is the thing that you think is non-obvious to a brand that, it used to be like free money and growth at all costs, and now it's about profitability, that they should be thinking about whether they use 2boxes or not? That is like a very core part of the P&L that can really help get the brand a better footing.
Yeah. Funny enough, I've been doing a lot of math the last couple of weeks to like help drive this home for a lot of larger retailers and brands. I'm going to say something maybe a little controversial. I bet I could go in front of the CFO of just about any $100 million to $1 billion and up brand, and I could find them at least 1% of their revenue that they are lighting on fire because of poor return processing. And the math on that is usually like pretty simple, right? Like, all right, hey, Aaron, you're the CFO of a $250 million e-commerce brand. You probably have a 20% return rate. Like, I don't need to know much about your category. If you're like women's apparel, you probably have 30 to 40% return rate. But let's just say 20. So 250 times 20, that's $50 million a year that's being returned. I bet like minimum, like best case scenario, you should be jumping up and down if it's only this bad. 5% of that inventory is wasted either because of fraud, abuse, poor mismanagement, timing, all these things. So take $50 million times 5%, that's $2.5 million a year, right there, that like you're just lighting on fire. Now, $2.5 million to some of these brands that are in this e-commerce world, right? Like 10, 15% net income margins, that's a significant impact. And you can do this stuff. You can change these things and really make it an advantage for you relatively quickly. You don't need to wait 6 months, 12 months. We launch customers in 30 days, right? And it's I think something where a lot of people have just not focused on this problem enough to really understand the economic impact to you as a brand.
I mean, it's an asset that they can get more out of. It's very interesting. One of the things that we focused on a lot at Loop, and obviously Loop still does, is turning a return into an exchange. It's like you've acquired the customer, they bought the product, they don't want it for whatever reason. Even if you get them to exchange like a pair of shoes for a pair of socks or go from $100 to $10, you still get to retain that person as a customer. You get to remarket them, whatever. It's the same thing on the asset side, which is like, why would you not get this asset back in the mix as quickly as possible? And of course, if it's damaged, knock it in the mix. If it's like something that nobody's going to buy, cool. Just like donate it, right? But actually use data to do this, not just gut feel. Okay, Yaw, on to you. You've also seen a big shift in the last couple of years with like kind of the market going up and then like everybody trying to grow. But then obviously you guys help the like on the customer experience side as well. So it's a cost savings tool. Can you share a little bit about Malomo and then dovetail maybe into like what you've seen happening in the ecosystem the last couple of years? Then I'll hit you with some follow-ups too.
Yeah, for sure. So the number one support ticket that e-commerce brands get is where's my order, and for most retailers, it's sort of like a necessary evil in their business where they just expect that customers' packages are gonna not get delivered to go awry or not arrive on time. And they act reactively to those issues. The problem is that the as those consumers have those problems, the trust between that consumer and the merchant erodes, to a point where they just choose to shop elsewhere because they don't have any visibility into where their order is. So our whole platform is geared around helping give transparency to both the brands and the consumers about the order and deliver that experience in a very thoughtful and elegant way that's highly designed. We believe pretty fervently that great design across every single touch point builds trust, and that trust can get eroded in just an instant. Like, it takes a lot to build that trust, and so the more often you can pay deposits in that trust bank with great experiences post purchase, the better off when things go wrong that you have an opportunity to retain that customer over time. So Malomo is kind of plug and play solution to help brands control the customer experience after that consumer makes a purchase. When we launched back, yeah, we launched back in 2019. So this is before the pandemic. I think we launched 6 months before the pandemic hit. Um, the core insight we had was, the order status email is one of the most highly opened, highly engaged emails. And we knew e-commerce brands were always looking for alpha in terms of like driving growth in their business. That was the main focus at that time, was just, we got to drive the next purchase. And so when we entered the market, like we originally had the thesis of like, we want to help brands kind of proactively communicate around order status. But we couldn't ignore this fact that like merchants just had that mindset. And so we built the platform around like, this is actually a really great marketing opportunity for you. When somebody's looking at their order status, how can you expose them to the brand and not just like put more product in front of them, but like do product education or drive them into your loyalty program, expose them to your origin story, like all those things that help build that trust. And so that was our hook, is like order tracking is a marketing channel, a great growth retention channel. And then the pandemic hit, and everybody was scrambling to figure out like, holy shit, like these packages just like, I don't know where they are. Like they're just getting lost, left, right, and center. Carriers are messing up. Their networks are just overloaded. They don't know what the heck's going on. And so CX got brought in, um, to help kind of get ahead of all of those issues. Um, and I think, over time, it's kind of put them in the limelight and put them like, you gave them a seat at the table, where it used to be you just have like a CS, like a head of CS or a director. Now you've got like the chief experience officers coming in and like creating that whole strategy. Um, and then logistics started to come into the picture. So we've seen this more so shift from like order tracking is an afterthought to, it's a team effort coordinated between multiple groups that have a very key stake in how the experience gets delivered. Marketing cares about the branding and the touch point and the messaging. CX cares about the proactive nature of it. Logistics cares about, are we delivering on time and which carriers are performing the best. And so that's what we've evolved into from a company standpoint.
I love it. Maybe maybe a similar question to what I asked Kyle. Like, what's something right now, if you were to like give advice, again, put aside Malomo for a minute, but like for brand, like what's the highest leverage thing they can be thinking about post purchase communication? If you think about the customer service side of things.
Yeah, I think it's, if they can proactively get ahead of the bad experiences, like that's the highest leverage thing that they can do. Like, I think a lot of them, they think about this as like order confirmation, delivery confirmation. Most of the problems occur in between those. And if you can proactively get ahead of those things, um, you, like I said, like you see your CSAT, your NPS scores go up. Like you'll see customers rave about the experiences. Those in turn drive that brand awareness to other consumers. So I think, just focusing on the problems a lot more is a huge leverage point.
I love it. Like, you guys see it. If something bad's going to happen, how do you message the customer a millisecond before they feel anxiety? Right. On some level, be proactive.
Yeah.
Kyle, I see you nodding. You got some thoughts.
Yeah, no, I'm literally like random, but I'm literally thinking about an experience I've had in the last like month with a new brand that I get inundated by this brand on social media, and I was like, oh, I'll give it a shot. Like, it looks nice, and I bought like two pairs of jeans from them, and the tracking experience was so bad. It's like the worst that I've ever seen, and I was like, I have no idea when this thing's even gonna arrive.
Yeah.
Like, and it's like it taints that whole experience. Like the product, then when that product arrives, right? Like if you're looking for problems, I feel like you're like,
Yeah,
I'm guaranteed returning this because I just had such a shit experience, right?
it's so funny.
It's like the product has to be so good. Like there's one company out there, and I'll just say it out loud. I love Filson. They have the worst return experience I've ever seen in my life. And I just go back because I'm like, I love their product. It's awesome product, American made. Like I feel like like Pacific Northwester when I wear it. I love it. But it's like, dude, how are you this bad at your customer experience? It's insane.
I do like that we're just three Midwestern boys. Speaking of, we got two kids just from Cleveland and an Indianapolis kid. So this is great. Good.
Go Browns.
I like it. All right, I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about like actually building your startups. And yeah, I want to start with you. Um, and I kind of want to drive deep because this is something that I'm thinking about a lot at Arita. If you could drive one behavior from your
Mm.
team right now, like you have your values, you guys have like a ton of customers, you're like successful, right? By all measures. It's like a well-loved company, but like, what is a behavior that you would drive differently from your team?
Oh man, that's a phenomenal question. I so the likely behavior I'd like to drive more into the team is speed wins. Like as a well, and it's like this is like the cliche in every early stage company, right? The company that the only advantage you have is speed. Like you don't have distribution, you don't have a brand name, you don't have like probably partner relationships. Like the only thing you can try to do is move faster than incumbents along a vector that matters a lot to the customer. And if you don't, right, like your odds of success just they nosedive. um there's another point I was gonna make, and I'm blanking on it, but oh, the other thing, so like just generally I think like startups, that's pretty key, but the Shopify ecosystem and commerce moves so fast. Like these merchants, what worked like last month in their businesses changes like on a dime. Even consumer taste and preference and like where they discover products, how they access those products, what their expectations are. It's so fast paced. It's so like high tempo, and so you have to build a culture that like can react and adapt to those changes as quickly as they're happening. Um, and so like I think like I've been trying to like I feel like every founder is just like you see the future, so you're just sprinting to get there. You want everybody to get there as fast as humanly possible, and everything around you just feels like it's moving in slow motion. Um, and so like I don't know, I've struggled a little bit to like beat that into the rest of the team.
Politely, we suggest it. Not we don't get violent as a CEO.
Speak for yourself. You do what you do what you got to do, right? No, um, and like it's hard because like like the team does move fast, but it's like how
Yeah,
can
yeah.
we move faster? Like what are the roadblocks? How do we move faster?
Hmm. Just as a quick aside, Kyle, before I bring it to you, I was on a call with Brian Sugar, one of our investors, a couple weeks ago,
Yeah.
right? Like Sugar Capital, awesome investor, awesome person. And he kind of reprimanded me in front of one of my co-founders, where he's like, "You've done this before. You know what good looks like. You're on chapter 3 in your head. You're on chapter 1 in the business. Slow the f down." And I was like, yeah, my impatience is probably not good for anybody, but it was very stark.
So he was like like telling you that, hey Aaron, actually you might be moving too fast for everybody around. Well,
I think it's more, probably, I think he doesn't know enough to know that I'm moving too fast and annoying my team, but let's assume the answer to that is yes. I think it's more that like I'm very impatient and I'm like, look, this is what's going to happen by the end of this year. And I need to set up the conditions for that to happen by the end of the year, but not expect it to happen tomorrow. Right. And like, it can't just be all roses on the way up. Kyle, I don't know if you have anything you want to say about speed or if there's a different behavior.
Honestly, like, yeah, I was gonna say basically like that's probably the number one. I mean, I think it's like speed with a caveat, right? It's like if you're going fast in the wrong direction, that's a big problem.
Yeah.
But I think speed is important. It's like that, just that sense of urgency. I think is really important. And I guess I'll say two things. Like on the speed front, I think a lot of people, especially like more junior people in the team, when we first bring them on, they have no concept of what it's like to start from truly zero, right? Like not many people on the planet do, right? Like we've all done that. I mean, like I remember like 3 years ago, my co-founder and I just doing like shit that is like insane looking back at it, just to like prove some things and like nothing that would scale, right? Um, but it's like, hey, you got to start somewhere, right? And I think a lot of people, they're so used to like, because you hire a lot of type A people who are like used to getting straight A's in high school and college, and you bring in, and it's like, I don't care if this thing is like half baked and crap. I need you to like prove whether or not this thing makes sense. And you don't need to prove whether or not this thing makes sense by writing code or by having like a perfect deck, right? Like you can actually prove things without that. And I think like Aaron, actually, I credit you a lot. I've learned a lot of that from you. And so I think that's one. I think the second is, and it changes as the company grows, but we're in a phase now. I'll say, I think we're shifting as a company, and it's a good thing, from kind of like, whoever grabs the ball, grab the ball. Like that was kind of how it was in the beginning of like, just there's so much stuff to do and like not enough people. So just like whoever can do it, do it. And now I think I'm trying to get more into this role of like, no, we got to have the right people in the right seats, knowing what their job is. And it's more of like, a basketball team or whatever. And it's like, you're in this position and these are the parts of the play that you run. And it's like, because I think that's increasing like how we're able to move really a lot faster in the last like 3 months in particular, is people, we know where we're going. People are skilled for the task that they need to be skilled at. And that transition period can be a little rough, I'm not going to lie. But yeah, I think like people understanding like, hey, you need to know where we're going, but you also need to focus on like just performing the hell out of your role. I'd say is kind of like something I'm really focused a lot on right now.
I love it. Well, one of the things that I think we're struggling with, and from talking to a bunch of companies, it feels like a lot of early stage remote companies struggle with, is kind of the interstitial stuff and the handoffs, where it's like you have a call, it's your leadership team or it's cross-functional. It could be whatever level, right? But it's like people from multiple functions. And then there's always the like dance around what's the next step and who owns it and how do you do this without overstepping. Any advice? Like, have you guys seen anything, or is this, I mean, like we could just all commiserate. Like, is there anything that you've seen that works to make sure that kind of that interstitial and the handoff between functions is more performant?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest. We went through some painful periods, like second half of last year with this. And I think there's a couple of changes that we made that, I feel like have been helpful, thus far, and we'll see if it keeps going. I mean, I think there's no secret sauce to any of this stuff, but two things that come to mind. The first is, effectively, like, I've kind of instituted this principle, whether it's like spoken this way or not, of like, there are no managers. There are like nobody's managing anything. Like, you're not managing other people. Like, I manage people. Evan, my co-founder, manages people, but like, you are here for a role, and that is the role that you perform. And like, there's no, like, we don't need management layers that to like RE speed. Management layers slow things down. So like that's what we do. The second thing is, and I'll take this for, I've never met the guy. I would love to at some point. I think first off, his product is amazing. And second off, he seems like a great CEO. Eric Glyman, the CEO of Ramp. He talks a lot about, like, he talks about this with job descriptions, but I think it plays in this context as well, which is make job descriptions extremely short and very specific. And like, that's what you hire for. You don't hire for, like, you see these JDs, and like, I'm guilty as the next guy in this, like these JDs that you write that are like 500 words and like kind of don't actually mean anything. It's like, no, like, here's your job. Here's what you're expected to perform. Here are the metrics that you are expected to march towards. And like in December, basically of this year, I effectively like redid our whole go-to-market team. And I wrote down a document that I shared with the entire team of like, here is your role. Here are your responsibilities. Here are your metrics. And it's like 2 pages long, right? For everybody on the team. And then it's like, let's talk about it. Like who disagrees with anything that's on here? Or like, did we miss anything? Or like, is something unclear between this role and that role? And then it's like, you just rely on people to be, like adults and execute together. And it's like, if you guys can't have a conversation about and get to a decision and like, you need to bring me in, then bring me in. But like, and if you consistently can't work well together, then we got to figure out another, path. But,
Dude, I love this.
yeah, those are, I don't know, maybe that came across a little too direct, but like, that's something that changed a lot in the last like 3 months. I'll just add one thing there. I can't take credit for this. I work with an executive coach who's been one of those things where I was like, why do you need a coach? And then I started working with a coach and I'm like, this is excellent. And anyways, he's framed it a lot to me as like, your job is not to push people. That's actually where I spent the first 2.5 years easy of this company pushing people. And I think that helps in the earliest days. But his thing was like, your job is to get people to pull you in the direction that they need you. Of like, hey, I need help with this thing, or I don't know, or I think we should do this, and here's why. Like, pull me into that conversation so I know that like, oh, this is valuable to your time. But I think underpinning that's like, you just have to trust that your team's doing the right things, executing, asking the right questions, and that just takes time and effort.
I love that. I love that analogy. Kyle, last word, and you don't have to say anything, but go to town.
Last word, I would say maybe since we're on the AI topic because we're in the age of it right now, I think like, I don't know for sure. I'm not the smartest guy. I'm not at a VC, anything like that. But like, I think a lot of people are going to light a lot of other people's money on fire over the next 5 years. I think it'll be a bubble overall. I think there's real tech being built, but I think like there'll be more money wasted in this cycle than in previous hype cycles, is my belief, because I think the stakes for getting it right are a lot higher.
Do you feel a push as an operator to like bring stuff in? Are your investors asking you to spend money? Is your team like, hey, we should spend money on stuff for the sake of it? Or where is that bubble coming from?
No, I mean, I think like we've gotten a little bit of pressure. We've gotten questions from our investors, but not like pressure per se. I think actually our team's really excited about the ability for us to scale revenue without scaling headcount as much, given a lot of the things that are happening and we're already putting to use. But I guess like what I would say is if there's like people who want to be a founder here or like are thinking about starting companies, like I would just say like, no matter what, whether it's AI or not, like if you just build something that people want and matters, I know it's like so trite, but like if you solve a real problem, like not a bullshit problem, like a real problem, then like whatever you're using AI or not, like cool, like you will build a business that matters. I just think so many people like, I don't know, I was at a conference 2 weeks ago, so maybe I'm a little like, jaded right now, but it's like you walk through and you're like, that's not a real problem. Like it is not. Like go talk to a brand and be like, is that a real problem? They'll be like, no, it's not a real problem. Like it sounds good to investors, but it's not a real problem. So I don't know, solve real problems. That's my last word.
Thank you everybody for joining 3 salty guys in tech who are just like, this is really fun. Thank you both for your time. Thanks for the insight, for sharing. All right, guys, have a great day. Thanks.
Cheers. See you guys. Bye.